day I'll get it right. And if you see the dark clouds gathering out on the horizon, don't be alarmed, they're just there for me. Just save me a place beside you in the night and the sleep at night. Someday I'll get it right. Someday when I'll get it right. Yeah, one day I'll get it right. Someday when I'll get it right. Yeah, one day I'll get it right. Yeah, one day I'll get it right. Thank you. We're gonna do a song here. This is from my band when I was in high school.
In part one, it was documented that Elton John's first Inland Empire concert took place in November 1970 at Landis Auditorium on the campus of Riverside City College. Elton John's second IE concert took place on December 5, 1970 at the Swing Auditorium on the National Orange Show Fairgrounds in San Bernardino. In the November 17, 1970 edition of the San Bernardino Sun newspaper, it was reported that Elton John and Leon Russell had been booked to play a concert at the Swing. On November 19th, the first of 5 advertisements for the concert ran in the Sun newspaper. It had Leon Russell listed as the headliner and Elton John billed as special guest star. The opening band was Sweat Hog. The November 22nd issue of local radio station KMEN's mini magazine, The Came Entertainer, ran a short bio of Elton John. In the article, he named some of his favorite artists and musical influences. Among them was Leon Russell, who he considered a mentor and inspiration. In fact, Leon Russell visited Elton John backstage when he made his U.S. debut in August 1970 at the Troubadour Club in West Hollywood. They exchanged pleasantries and expressed mutual admiration for one another's music. On December 3rd, 2 days before the Swing concert, this article ran in the Sun newspaper. The article read in part, "Rock music artists Leon Russell and Elton John will appear in concert Saturday at 8 p.m. in the National Orange Show's Swing Auditorium. Russell has been given top billing on the show, which is being promoted by Al Tinkley and Lou Robin of Sight and Sound Productions. But John is currently attracting the most attention in rock music circles. John, a 23-year-old Englishman, although well known in England, did not make his U.S. debut until last August in Los Angeles. He is a singer, pianist, songwriter, and a showman. He incorporates considerable horseplay into his act and typically will show up for a concert in an outfit such as red-ribbed corduroy overalls, aluminum-colored boots, and a Donald Duck pin. His single record release of Your Song is currently making the climb up the national record charts. At last, it was the day of the concert, and the promoters ran one final ad in the Sun newspaper. By 1970, Eve Perez had graduated from Colton High School and was working in the Colton Joint Unified School District office. She was a regular at Swing Auditorium concerts. Eve attended shows by such artists as James Brown, The Supremes, The Jackson 5, and the infamous June 1970 Jimi Hendrix concert, where the exiting audience was tear-gassed by the San Bernardino police because of vandalism by those outside who couldn't get in. Eve went to the Leon Russell Elton John swing concert with her sister and met up with other friends. She arrived at the concert early and knew to enter from a less used side door where tickets were also being taken. She entered the venue and went directly to front row center. She knew the music of Elton John but was not quite as familiar with Leon Russell's. She said the younger members of the audience seemed to be there for Elton, while the older hippie types were there for Leon. One thing about Elton John that made an impression on her was the fact that he was one of the rare music performers to unashamedly wear glasses. A bootleg recording made by an audience member allows us to see the set list of the concert. Elton led off with his current single, Your Song, and concluded with Burn Down the Mission, followed by a rousing medley of rock songs. Unfortunately, there was no Sun newspaper concert review. However, this article appeared in the December 7th edition. It reported that 14 people complained to the San Bernardino Police Department that their vehicles had been burglarized while parked across the street from the swing. In the December 8th sounding section of The Sun, it was reported that the Elton John-Leon Russell concert attendance was 4,800. All in all, it was considered a decent turnout for two emerging artists. Elton John would not return to play another concert in the Inland Empire for some 40 years. On November 5, 2010, he played the Citizens Business Bank Arena in Ontario, California. The occasion was the Union Tour, which reunited Elton John with Leon Russell. They had recently recorded an album together entitled The Union. The joint recording and tour demonstrated Elton John's continuing respect and admiration for Leon Russell. To date, this was Elton John's last concert in the Inland Empire.
Jon and Chuck from Kareeta. Welcome to the Lo-Fi Lounge. I'm Chris LeRoy, and this is the first time we've met, but we've got a common denominator in Tom Scharf, Morst, as a lot of his friends know. He says, I know some folks you really want to hear. I just heard this band. So I've been listening to you guys, and I'm just so glad that we were able to get it together so early after this debut album.
Yeah, Tom, we met him at Great American Music Hall in December, and he taped our show. He's a taper.
Yeah.
And he bought a CD, if I recall, at the time. And he, we shook hands, and he said, I'll be in touch. I really enjoyed it. And he did a really good recording.
Yeah.
And we ended up using it because we did a replay a couple weeks ago of the show with video. And we used his audio, and then he hit us up again and was like, I'm friends with this guy, Chris, I passed your information on to him. And so, yeah, nice to meet you.
Thank you for having us.
The first thing, this morning I was clicking around, something I posted up from you, Jon, where you had, hang on a second, you're drinking coffee and you had this album.
Yeah.
Nebraska. And one thing I really like about your album, and I think sometimes bands don't like when you mention, oh, you sound like this, you sound like this. That's not what your band's about, but you are certainly some heart and soul that's connected to this music. I could tell before I saw that picture. I hear it in the spirit of the music, in the stories of the music, and sort of kind of the heart that comes through the music. So tell me about your relationship to this album.
Oh man.
Chuck.
Well,
Chuck's gonna have a good time talking about this now.
This will be I'll try to keep it short. I could talk about my relationship to Bruce Springsteen and his music and his writing for hours and hours, as could John. But that record in particular, I found it really late in finding Bruce Springsteen. I grew up listening to FM radio in the 80s, so I knew Bruce Springsteen as Dancing in the Dark and those kind of songs. Not that those are bad songs or anything, but that's just what I knew. I was part of that first MTV generation. Yeah. And so I went different directions with, musically, but, I came back to Bruce really quick in his music, and that record, I was just sort of working my way through his catalog, and had just heard about it. It was sort of like his punk rock record, kind of like Tonight's the Night by Neil Young. Like it was sort of like even the punkers like that record.
Right.
Then I read a really great book about the characters about that album and the characters and what Bruce was trying to get across, called Hearts of Darkness. And it's a really great book all about the record. So I got really deep into that record, and it's hard to say, but I probably listened to that record more than any other Bruce Springsteen record. So I'd have to say it's my favorite. And John, of course, is a big fan also.
Yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and Springsteen was kind of a fabric of the rock upbringing, with what you listen to and what people know from around there. My uncle went to see Bruce Springsteen at the Main Point, which was like a bar, right before he got big and all this stuff, and went in a blizzard. And actually, my friend with Nebraska, the song Atlantic City.
Yeah.
They blew up the Chicken Man in Philly last night, which is a mobster in South Philly. A friend I grew up with, his grandmother lived in the same street as the Chicken Man and remembers when it got blown up.
These are songs about real things.
Where the plows break the ground with the fires of dawn. There'd be Elvis and the Bible on the way up to the barn. And we'd learn to pull the weeds and all forgiveness from the dead. My daddy broke his back for a farmer's pay. When a man ain't worn a collared shirt in damn near 15 years, he ain't headed for the hills the first loud poppy years. So Mr. Tonight, remember I was...
Part of the storyline of what this album, Kareeta album, and the music that comes out of it is all the influences that everybody's got influences, but it was in a very concentrated period. We were just going through all these kind of albums and documentaries and stuff. Yeah. The Promise was another one, and Wings for Wheels. The two Springsteen, Born to Run and Darkness on the Edge of Town documentaries were pretty formative too, with absorbing how to write that way, and me not copying them, but Darkness on the Edge. Born to Run was a big album. It was like a big epic album, and he's he wanted Darkness on the Edge of Town to be more stripped back and raw. Oh yeah, and, and same with Nebraska, kind of tapping into that is interesting.
Tried to keep it on the side of the. We tried to, if anything got too pretty when we were writing it or arranging it, we kind of leaned towards more of the darkness and Nebraska sort of production and feel than as far as any of those bigger records.
Our producer Greg Loicato said, I think he said something in a text something Dirty Beauty or something like that. Ooh. Listening to these mixes, yeah. There's still, I think personally the stuff that me and Chuck and the rest of the guys and everybody that we're going for, you don't want something too slick. There's got to be an edge to it. There's got to be a little scrappiness, even in the pretty songs, like a song like Wild Horses by the Rolling Stones. It's still bittersweet.
And I've seen California from every window seat there is. And I've learned to keep the curtains pulled and my reflection here. There are mountains to my east and lonesome beaches stretch to the west. Lord, I'm such a mess. I'm still such a mess.
The way we sort of did these things is we took the lyrics and we like really focused in on those and the characters in the song, and we sort of worked really hard to get it like little soundtracks to what he was going through. I know we talked about this a lot, like this guy's going through this, like that's too pretty of a note, or it needs to have a little more edge to this part, or whatever like that. But we wanted to make sure that the music was really authentic to what we were trying to express, or what their character was going through in the song.
In March of 2020, and all gigs are wiped off the face of the earth,
Right.
and we're all stuck. And Chuck happened to be visiting, which he does from time to time. And we didn't know much about this and whatever. And I was like, just stay here and let's just ride it out here for now. We're safe here. Let's just, see what happens with this thing. Maybe it's over in a couple months, maybe it's longer. We have no idea. So a couple weeks in, we're twiddling our thumbs. We're listening to records and watching documentaries, but we're kind of, stir crazy. And he's like, I got some song ideas. Remember I told you I have some song ideas? And I said, yeah. And he's like, country-like, but not exactly. And so we just started, I have the guitars and we got a lot of time on our hands. Let's see what happens. And, he would have melodies in his head and some lyrics. And I would at first kind of deconstruct chord structures out of that and stuff. And then we started coming up with some stuff. And so, early it was like waltzes and some things like that. And after a few times, we started hitting a song like Bloodhound or something, and we're like, okay, this is getting a little more evolved. And
Right.
It may be crowded at the bottom now, but out here on the edge, it's just you and me. Don't the rain feel the same, whether you are up or down? Yeah, your new place in the same hometown won't take away all your pain. Oh, and baby, it's true, baby.
And a couple of weeks later, a month later, Aaron, who usually plays bass, that's most people know him as a bass player. He came over. He was stir crazy. He was like, I haven't seen anybody in a month. I'm going nuts. Come on over. I think it's okay. I think you're okay. So he comes over and we're like, hey, we got a couple tunes. I don't know. And we start playing them. He's like, this is good. And he grabs my resonator and starts playing like lap steel.
Right.
We're like, when'd you learn how to do that? And he's like, like a month ago. We're like, well, that's pretty handy actually right now. So we started kind of working on some ideas, and we're like, this is fun. And he comes over a couple of days later and whatever. Brian comes by, the drummer, for my birthday in this time frame. It dropped off a Little Feat record or something for my birthday. And Chuck's like, we got some tunes cooking. You're gonna have to play on it when we're ready. He's like, what do you mean? We got some country kind of twangy stuff. You're gonna dig it. We're gonna, make some demos or something. I don't know. It's fun. You're gonna dig it. We got something here. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do something with it. We got some songs. And he's like, okay. So a couple months later, he comes over, and the next thing you know, there's a full drum kit in here and a PA and stuff. And we're making demos. Roadblock, really, on acoustic guitar. He's kind of here's a kind of a lick, and and got the chords going, and he'd go out in the porch and smoke a cigarette and come back in with a whole song's worth of lyrics.
This is a song about growing up in the South and running from the cops. letters in a row for those that couldn't make it on Sunday, to take some salvation for the road. Won't head for the back turn, won't head for the creek. That's where Jimmy and Aubrey and a pound of pain are just waiting to bleed on me. There's a bad man on the move, and the hillsides all turn red and blue, and I just can't turn around before town. There's a roadblock between me and you. Like they ain't waiting on me. I think my tag is out in a light or two, and I ain't got no idea how the hell did they make me. I moved at night real slow, and when they raised the weight, it should have raised suspicion. That's the stuff I didn't know. There's a bad man on the move, and the hillsides all turn red and blue, and I just can't turn around before town. There's a roadblock between me. Stretched behind, their bladed birds up above, and if the papers don't misspell my name, my family will know that they locked me up like a gun. Hit the median and fly. Yeah, that boat could shed a bridge that's just a mile away, and I can make it if it all goes right. There's a bad man on the move, and the hillsides all turn red and blue, and I just can't turn around before town. There's a roadblock between me. There's a bad man. Mr. Greg Loicano. We got a couple more.
Where the rain comes down, where your heart is turning round. In the quiet silent seconds, I turned off the light switch and I came down to meet you in the half light the moon left, but a cluster of nightjars sang some songs out of tune. A man with bright lights shone down from a roof, come down in time. I still heard her say, so clear in my ear, like it was the day. Come down in time was the message she gave. Well, come down in time and I'll meet you halfway. There are women and women, and some hold you tight while some leave you counting the stars in the night.